My husband asked me to sleep on the couch for a week so he could get solid sleep after struggling with insomnia, and I'm feeling completely disrespected. What started as temporary support became a pattern where my comfort didn't matter anymore, and I was expected to sacrifice everything while he prioritized only himself. My name is Elena, and I'm 42 years old. This story isn't just about sleeping arrangements or insomnia, it's about how quickly respect can disappear in a marriage when one person decides their needs are the only ones that matter. Let me take you back to when everything was different. I met Trevor 9 years ago at a bookstore coffee shop in Portland. He was 26 then, working on his master's degree in engineering, and I was 33, finally feeling ready to settle down after focusing on my career for years. We bonded over our shared love of mystery novels and spent hours discussing everything from Agatha Christie to modern psychological thrillers. Trevor seemed mature beyond his years, talking about wanting a partnership where both people supported each other through thick and thin. I've seen too many relationships where one person carries all the weight, he told me on our third date, as we walked through Pioneer Courthouse Square. I want something different. I want us to be a team. Those words felt like a promise back then, and I believed them completely. Our early years were exactly what I'd hoped for. We got married 2 years after meeting, bought a modest house in southeast Portland, and started planning for children. Trevor was attentive, helpful around the house, and genuinely excited about building a family together. When our first child, Emma, was born, he was hands-on from day one. He'd wake up for night feedings, change diapers without complaint, and constantly told me what an amazing mother I was. Then came Jackson 2 years later, followed by little Sophia 4 years after that. With 3 kids, now 10, 8, and 4 years old, our lives became busier, but we seemed to handle it well as a team. Trevor had advanced in his career and was making good money as a structural engineer, while I worked part-time from home as a freelance graphic designer to help contribute while still being available for the kids. For years, we had our routine down to a science. We'd tag-team bedtime stories, alternate who got up early on weekends, and always made sure the other person got breaks when needed. If one of us was sick, the other stepped up without question. That's what partnership looked like to me, and I thought it looked the same to him. The first signs of change were subtle, so subtle I almost missed them. About 6 months ago, Trevor started making small comments about being tired more often than usual. I barely slept last night, became a regular morning greeting. At first, I was sympathetic and suggested he see a doctor, but he'd brush it off, saying work stress was probably the culprit. Then he started staying up later, claiming he needed to wind down after putting the kids to bed. I'd find him scrolling through his phone or watching TV until midnight or later, then complaining the next morning about being exhausted. When I'd suggest earlier bedtimes, he'd get defensive. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under at work," he'd say, though his job hadn't really changed much in the past year. "I need time to decompress." I started noticing he was less helpful with the kids' morning routine, claiming he was too tired to function. More and more, I found myself handling breakfast, getting everyone dressed, and managing the chaos of getting 3 children out the door for school while Trevor moved slowly through his own morning routine, grumbling about his lack of sleep. The turning point came about 2 months ago when Trevor decided to see a doctor about his sleep issues. Dr. Martinez prescribed him sleeping medication, explaining that sometimes a short course of sleep aids could help reset someone's sleep cycle. Trevor was excited about the prospect of finally getting good rest. "This is going to change everything," he told me as we drove home from the appointment. "Once I'm sleeping better, I'll be able to help more around the house again." But instead of helping, the medication seemed to make everything worse. Trevor would take his pill around 9 p.m., then lie in bed wide awake until 3 or 4 in the morning. He'd toss and turn, making it difficult for me to sleep as well. During the day, he was more irritable than ever, snapping at the kids for normal childhood behavior and leaving me to smooth things over. The doctor said this might happen, he'd explain when I expressed concern. Sometimes people have a paradoxical reaction to sleep medication. It makes them more awake instead of drowsy. I suggested he call Dr. Martinez to discuss alternatives, but Trevor insisted on giving it more time. Week after week, our bedroom became a battleground of restless energy and frustrated sighs. I started sleeping poorly myself, partly because of his movement and partly because I was worried about him. 3 weeks ago, things reached a breaking point. Trevor had been taking the medication for over a month with no improvement, and both of us were exhausted. He was barely functioning at work, and I was handling virtually everything at home: cooking, cleaning, kids' homework, bedtime routines, weekend activities, grocery shopping, laundry, and all the countless small tasks that keep a household running. "I can't keep living like this," he announced one morning after another sleepless night. "Something has to change." I immediately jumped into problem-solving mode, the way I always do when our family faces a challenge. "Let's make a plan," I said. "First, you need to call Dr. Martinez today and tell her the medication isn't working. Second, maybe we should look into other solutions, meditation apps, changing your diet, exercise timing, whatever it takes." But Trevor seemed resistant to making changes to his own routine. Instead, he focused on external factors that might be disturbing his sleep. Our bedroom fan was too loud, then too quiet. The streetlight outside was too bright. The mattress was too soft. Each night brought a new complaint about why he couldn't sleep. I found myself walking on eggshells, trying to create the perfect sleep environment for him. I bought blackout curtains, moved the humidifier to different spots, even suggested we invest in a white noise machine. When he mentioned that my breathing might be keeping him awake, I started sleeping closer to the edge of the bed, trying to minimize any movement that might disturb him. "Maybe you should try sleeping in a hotel for a few nights," I suggested during one particularly difficult week. "Just until we figure out what's going on with the medication. Sometimes a complete change of environment can help reset your sleep cycle." Trevor immediately rejected the idea. "I'm not spending money on a hotel when we have a perfectly good house," he said. "Besides, I need to be here in case the kids need something at night." This reasoning puzzled me since I was already handling all the nighttime kid duties, getting drinks of water, helping with bad dreams, cleaning up after Sophia's occasional bedwetting accidents. But I didn't push the hotel idea, instead redoubling my efforts to support him at home. I took over his usual household responsibilities completely. Where we used to split dinner duties, I now cooked every meal. Where we used to alternate who helped with homework, I now supervised all 3 kids every evening. Where we used to take turns with weekend morning routines, I now got up early every Saturday and Sunday to let him sleep in. "I just need to get through this rough patch," he'd say when I looked particularly exhausted. "Once my sleep improves, everything will go back to normal." I scheduled his follow-up appointments with Dr. Martinez, researched sleep hygiene tips online, and even bought special tea that was supposed to promote relaxation. I was determined to help him overcome this challenge the same way we'd tackled other difficulties in our marriage, as a team. 5 nights ago, Trevor finally decided to stop taking the sleep medication. "I think this stuff is making everything worse," he announced. "I'm going to try sleeping without it and see what happens." That same night, he moved to the living room couch, saying he wanted to try a completely different environment. He set up our portable white noise machine and created what he called his sleep sanctuary in our living room. To my amazement, he slept for 7 straight hours, the best night's rest he'd had in months. "This is incredible," he said the next morning, looking more refreshed than I'd seen him in weeks. "I actually feel human again." I was thrilled for him and relieved that we'd finally found something that worked. "That's wonderful," I said. "Should we start looking into getting a proper guest room set up? Maybe we could convert the basement or rearrange the office." But Trevor had other ideas. "Actually," he said, "I think it would be better if you slept on the couch for the next few nights. I want to make sure this wasn't just a fluke, and I need to establish a consistent sleep routine in our bedroom." I was taken aback by this suggestion. Our couch is not comfortable for sleeping. It's a standard 3-seater that's too short for anyone over 5 feet tall, and the cushions have seen better days after years of kids jumping on them. The living room is also right next to the kitchen and front door, making it noisy when anyone gets up early or comes home late. "Are you sure that's the best solution?" I asked. "I mean, I'm happy you're sleeping better, but maybe we should stick with what worked for you." Trevor shook his head firmly. "The bedroom environment is what I need to master. I've been avoiding it for too long because of the medication issues. Now I need to reclaim that space and establish good sleep habits there." His reasoning seemed logical enough, and I was so relieved that he was finally sleeping that I agreed to try it for a couple of nights. "Just temporarily," I said, "while you get your routine established." That first night on the couch was rough. The cushions are uneven and there's a spring that pokes into your ribs no matter how you position yourself. The living room is chilly because we usually turn down the heat at night, and I didn't have access to our bedroom's extra blankets without potentially waking Trevor. I managed maybe 4 hours of broken sleep. The next morning, I was exhausted but tried to stay positive. "How did you sleep?" I asked Trevor as he came downstairs looking rested. "Really well," he said with satisfaction. 8 hours straight. I think this arrangement might be working. I waited for him to ask how I'd slept or acknowledge that the couch wasn't comfortable, but he was already focused on other things, checking his phone, making coffee, talking about his work schedule for the day. It was as if my sleep experience didn't factor into his evaluation of whether the arrangement was working. The second night was even worse. Little Sophia woke up around 2 a.m. with a stomach bug, crying and calling for mommy. I had to get up from the couch, take care of her, clean up vomit, change her pajamas, and stay with her until she fell back asleep around 4 a.m. Then I tried to get a few more hours of rest on the couch before everyone else woke up. When Trevor came downstairs at 7 a.m., looking refreshed again, I expected him to take over the morning routine so I could get some rest after the difficult night with Sophia. "Another good night's sleep for me," he announced cheerfully. "I think we're onto something with this arrangement." "Sophia was sick most of the night," I said, hoping he'd offer to help or at least acknowledge what I'd been through. "Oh, is she feeling better now?" he asked, but he was already pouring his coffee and didn't wait for a complete answer. "I should probably get to work a bit early today to catch up on some projects." That's when it hit me. Trevor hadn't heard Sophia crying, hadn't woken up to help, and wasn't offering to take over any morning duties despite my obvious exhaustion. The bedroom door had been closed, and with his white noise machine running, he'd been completely insulated from the family crisis that I'd handled alone. For the next 2 nights, I continued sleeping on the couch while Trevor solidified his claim to our bedroom. Each morning, he'd report his successful sleep while I struggled with fatigue from uncomfortable nights and interrupted rest. Sophia's stomach bug lingered, meaning more middle-of-the-night wake-ups that only I responded to. Meanwhile, I was still handling all the household responsibilities I'd taken on during his insomnia crisis. Cooking, cleaning, kids' activities, homework supervision, laundry, grocery shopping, everything continued to fall on my shoulders even though Trevor was now sleeping well and should have been able to resume his share of the work. When I mentioned this to him on the 4th morning, he seemed surprised by my concern. "I'm still getting my sleep schedule regulated," he said. "I don't want to disrupt the progress I'm making by changing too much too quickly. Just give me a few more days to solidify this routine." "But I'm not sleeping well at all," I replied. "And I'm still doing everything around the house. When do I get a break?" Trevor looked genuinely puzzled by my question. "You knew this was temporary when we started. I just need a little more time to make sure the sleep thing is really fixed." That conversation made me realize how differently we were viewing this situation. To Trevor, his sleep crisis was the primary problem that needed solving, and everything else, including my comfort and rest, was secondary. To me, we were supposed to be partners working together to find a solution that worked for both of us. Yesterday, Trevor announced that he'll be traveling for work starting Monday, but he wants me to continue sleeping on the couch until he leaves. "I want to maintain this routine right up until my trip," he explained. "I can't risk disrupting my sleep pattern now. This means I'll have spent 8 nights on the uncomfortable couch by the time he travels. But the bigger issue is what comes after his work trip. Trevor has decided to extend his business travel into a 3-day personal vacation, something he's never done before. I figure while I'm already away from home, I might as well take some time to really recharge," he said when he told me about his plans. "I've been under so much stress with the sleep issues that I think a few days of complete relaxation will be good for me." He's planning to go to a resort in Arizona, play golf, get massages, and basically have a solo vacation while I remain home with all 3 kids and all the household responsibilities. No discussion about whether I might need a break too, no acknowledgement that I've been carrying extra weight for months, no suggestion that maybe we could arrange childcare so I could have some downtime as well. When I pointed out that I've been stressed too and might benefit from a break, Trevor seemed dismissive. "But you'll be sleeping in our comfortable bed while I'm gone," he said, as if access to our own mattress was some kind of generous gift. "And you'll have the whole house to yourself in the evenings after the kids go to sleep." The fact that he views solo parenting 3 children as a relaxing situation shows how disconnected he's become from the realities of our family life. Evening hours with kids aren't me time, they're homework help, dinner cleanup, bedtime routines, and collapse and exhaustion time. Last night was particularly difficult. Sophia woke up again around 3 a.m., this time with nightmares from her recent illness. I spent an hour comforting her, getting her settled back in her own bed, and then lying awake myself because I was too stressed to fall back asleep easily. I finally dozed off around 5 a.m., only to be woken by Jackson at 6:30 asking for breakfast. When Trevor came downstairs at 7:30, looking well rested and ready for his day, I was barely functioning. I'd already gotten Jackson fed and started getting the other kids ready for school, but I felt like I was moving through fog. "Rough night?" Trevor asked, but he was already checking his phone for work emails. "Sophia had nightmares again," I said. "I was up with her for over an hour." He responded absently, not looking up from his phone. "Is coffee ready?" That was the moment I realized how completely our dynamic had shifted. Trevor's sleep had become the most important thing in our household, and my sleep, along with my overall well-being, had become irrelevant. Even though his insomnia was essentially resolved, the arrangement that was supposed to be temporary had become the new normal, with no end date in sight. I spent the day yesterday thinking about how we'd gotten to this point. When had Trevor stopped seeing me as his partner and started seeing me as his support system? When had my needs become negotiable while his became non-negotiable? The answer, I think, lies in how I responded to his initial sleep crisis. I was so focused on being supportive and understanding that I never established boundaries around what I was willing to sacrifice. I took on extra responsibilities without asking for anything in return. I prioritized his comfort over my own without insisting that solutions work for both of us. But Trevor's response troubles me even more. Instead of recognizing my sacrifices and looking for ways to minimize their impact on me, he simply accepted them as his due. Instead of viewing his improved sleep as an opportunity to restore balance to our relationship, he saw it as confirmation that the current arrangement should continue indefinitely. This morning, I tried to have a serious conversation with him about how I've been feeling. I waited until the kids were at school and we had some uninterrupted time to talk. Trevor, I said, I need us to talk about these sleeping arrangements and how things have been going overall. He immediately looked defensive. My sleep has been so much better this week. I really don't want to change anything that might mess with that progress. I understand that, I replied, but I haven't been sleeping well at all. The couch is uncomfortable, and I'm exhausted. Plus, I'm still handling everything around the house even though you're sleeping better now. I need us to find a solution that works for both of us. Trevor was quiet for a moment, then said, Look, I know this hasn't been ideal for you, but I've been dealing with a serious health issue. Sometimes one partner needs to sacrifice more when the other is going through a crisis. But your sleep is better now, I pointed out. You've been getting solid sleep for almost a week. So when does the crisis end and normal partnership resume? I don't want to jinx it by changing too much too soon, he said. What if I move back to sleeping with you and the insomnia comes back? Then we're back to square one. I could see his point about not wanting to risk his progress, but his solution bothered me deeply. So what you're saying is that I should continue sleeping poorly indefinitely because you're afraid of potentially sleeping poorly again? It's not indefinite, Trevor protested. Just until I'm sure this is really fixed. Maybe another few weeks. A few weeks? I repeated, feeling my frustration spike. I've already been on the couch for 4 nights, I'll be there for 4 more nights until you travel, and now you want to extend it for weeks after you get back from your vacation? I don't see why you're making such a big deal about this, Trevor said, his tone becoming irritated. It's just sleeping arrangements. It's not like I'm asking you to move out of the house. That comment revealed how little he understood about the impact this situation was having on me. It wasn't just sleeping arrangements, it was about respect, partnership, and whose comfort mattered in our relationship. It's not just about where I sleep, I said. It's about the fact that I'm exhausted but I'm still doing all the housework and childcare. It's about you planning a vacation for yourself while I continue carrying all the family responsibilities. It's about my needs not seeming to matter as long as yours are met. Trevor sighed heavily, like I was being unreasonable. I've been going through a really difficult time with the sleep issues. I thought you understood that. Once everything is back to normal, I'll start helping more around the house again. When is that going to be? I asked. Because from where I'm sitting, you sleeping well is the new normal, but everything else is still the same. I'm still doing everything I was doing during your crisis, plus now I'm sleeping on the couch. You're being dramatic, Trevor said, which immediately made me defensive. I'm not asking you to do anything unreasonable. Lots of couples sleep separately when one person has sleep issues. He wasn't wrong about couples sometimes sleeping separately, but those arrangements are usually mutual decisions that consider both partners' comfort. This felt different, like a unilateral decision that prioritized his needs exclusively. Our conversation ended without resolution. Trevor went to work, and I spent the day feeling frustrated and misunderstood. I found myself wondering if other couples have dealt with similar situations and how they handled them. That evening, after getting the kids fed, bathed, and settled for the night, I sat on the couch that would be my bed again and really thought about what was bothering me most about this whole situation. It's not just the physical discomfort of sleeping on the couch, though that's certainly part of it. It's not just the exhaustion from handling all the household and parenting duties alone, though that's wearing me down too. What hurts most is the feeling that Trevor no longer sees me as an equal partner whose needs matter as much as his. During his insomnia crisis, I stepped up without hesitation because that's what partners do for each other. I took on extra work, made sacrifices, and prioritized his well-being because I love him and wanted to help him through a difficult time. But now that the crisis has passed, instead of recognizing what I've done and working to restore balance, Trevor seems to have settled into a new dynamic where my sacrifice is simply expected. The upcoming work trip and vacation make this even more painful. While I continue sleeping on an uncomfortable couch and managing all family responsibilities, Trevor will be staying in comfortable hotel beds and then treating himself to spa days and golf. There's something deeply unfair about that contrast, and his inability to see it makes me question how much he values my contributions to our family. I keep thinking about something my mother told me years ago, before she passed away. We were talking about marriage, and she said, "The measure of a good partner isn't how they treat you when everything is easy. It's how they treat you when they're under stress, and it's how they act after a crisis passes." At the time, I thought she was being overly cautious about relationships. But now I understand what she meant. Trevor's response to his own crisis, and his behavior now that it's resolved, is showing me something about his character that I haven't wanted to acknowledge. When he was struggling, I immediately thought about how to support him. When I'm struggling, he thinks about how to maintain his own comfort. When he needed help, I restructured my entire routine around his needs. When I need consideration, he's worried about protecting his progress. This isn't the partnership I thought we had, and it's not the example I want to set for our children about how spouses should treat each other. Tonight, as I prepare for another night on this uncomfortable couch, I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Part of me wants to just endure this until Trevor feels secure about his sleep, hoping that eventually he'll recognize what I've sacrificed and we can return to a more balanced relationship. But another part of me is tired of being the only one making sacrifices. I'm tired of my comfort being negotiable while his is essential. I'm tired of managing all the family responsibilities alone while he focuses solely on his own needs. Tomorrow, Trevor leaves for his business trip and vacation. He'll spend the next week sleeping in comfortable beds while I continue on the couch that he's abandoned. When he returns, rested and relaxed from his solo getaway, he'll expect to resume the sleeping arrangement that works perfectly for him and terribly for me. I find myself wondering if this is what the rest of our marriage will look like, me adapting to whatever Trevor needs while my own needs remain unaddressed. The thought makes me sadder than I want to admit. What hurts most is that I don't think Trevor is intentionally trying to be selfish or unfair. I think he genuinely believes that his sleep issues were a crisis that required extreme measures, and now he's afraid to change anything that might threaten his recovery. From his perspective, asking me to continue this arrangement is reasonable because it's working for him. But that's exactly the problem. He's only considering whether it's working for him. My experience, my sleep, my comfort, my exhaustion, doesn't seem to factor into his evaluation of whether this arrangement should continue. I love Trevor, and I want our marriage to succeed. But I'm starting to realize that love alone isn't enough if only one person is making efforts to accommodate the other. Partnership requires both people to care about each other's well-being, not just their own. As I lie here on this couch again tonight, listening to the sounds of our house settling around me, I'm forced to confront some difficult questions about my marriage and my future. Can I continue in a relationship where my comfort and needs are consistently secondary? What message am I sending to our children about respect and partnership if I accept this dynamic? And perhaps most importantly, if Trevor can't see how unfair this situation has become, what does that say about his capacity for empathy and partnership in other areas of our life together? I don't have answers to these questions yet, but I know I can't keep sleeping on the couch indefinitely while pretending that everything is fine. Something needs to change, and if Trevor isn't willing to consider my perspective, then maybe I need to start making some changes on my own. The woman I was 8 months ago would have continued this arrangement indefinitely, hoping that Trevor would eventually recognize my sacrifice and reward it with renewed partnership. But 8 months of carrying most of our family's responsibilities alone has changed me. I'm tired in ways that go beyond physical exhaustion. I'm tired of being taken for granted. I'm tired of my needs being treated as optional. And I'm tired of feeling like a support system rather than a partner in my own marriage. Tomorrow, after Trevor leaves for his trip, I think I'll move back into our bedroom. Not because the situation is resolved, but because I deserve to sleep comfortably in my own home. When he returns and objects, we'll have a conversation about what our marriage looks like going forward. Because the truth is, this situation has shown me something important about both Trevor and myself. It's shown me that he's capable of being quite selfish when his own comfort is at stake. And it's shown me that I'm capable of sacrificing more than I should when I'm trying to be supportive. Neither of those realizations feels good, but they're both important. If we're going to move forward as a couple, we need to address these patterns before they become permanent features of our relationship. My mother always said that people show you who they are through their actions, especially during difficult times. Trevor has shown me that when push comes to shove, his comfort matters more to him than mine does. Now I need to show him that I won't accept that dynamic indefinitely. I still love the man I married, but I'm not sure that man still exists. The Trevor who promised we'd be a team, who said he'd seen too many relationships where one person carries all the weight, where is that person now? Maybe he'll return once his sleep is fully regulated and he's had his vacation. Maybe this period of selfishness is truly temporary. But maybe it isn't. Maybe this crisis has revealed something about Trevor's character that was always there but hidden during easier times. Maybe I've been so focused on being the perfect supportive partner that I never noticed how one-sided our partnership had become. Either way, I can't continue living like this. I won't spend weeks or months sleeping on an uncomfortable couch while my husband enjoys the comfort of our bed and the relaxation of solo vacations. I won't keep absorbing all the household and parenting responsibilities while he focuses exclusively on his own needs. Starting tomorrow, things are going to change. I'm going back to our bedroom, I'm going to start asking for help with the kids and house, and I'm going to stop accepting explanations about why my needs should remain secondary to his. If Trevor can't accept those changes, then we'll need to have some much bigger conversations about whether this marriage is working for both of us. Because right now, it's only working for one of us, and that's not sustainable. I may be 42 years old, but I'm not too old to expect respect and partnership in my marriage. I'm not too old to demand that my comfort and well-being matter as much as my husband's. And I'm definitely not too old to make changes if those expectations aren't met. Tonight might be my last night on this couch, but it won't be because Trevor decided I could return to our bed. It will be because I decided I deserve better than this arrangement, regardless of what he thinks about his sleep routine. That feels like progress, even if everything else feels uncertain right now.